You doing all right? Doing good. Yeah, good. No, I'm glad. We're starting a new season, a new series, and it's time to celebrate Advent. And so I'm not used to. I was just talking to Pastor Robin and Pastor Ken before we kind of get together and we do a little prayer and we chat a little bit. And it's like I've not really done a lectionary series like where we're following the lectionary, and so it kind of gives you a topic and it gives you some scripture. And so if I veer off into unknown land that you're not ready for, not used to, that's just how it's going to end up. So if you have your Bibles, and actually there are Bibles in the back too. If you don't have a Bible and you need one or want one, you can borrow one in the back, or you can just keep one of those in the back. And there's some at your tables as well. All right. So we're going to be in. And also, this series that we're doing is going to be happening both upstairs and here. All right, so in traditional service and in Impact. So we're doing it as an entire service. So it picks up. The whole series kind of is based around this one passage in Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 11, and it says, "He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms and carry them in his bosom and gently lead the mother sheep." Holidays are supposed to be kind of filled with joy, right? I mean, holidays are supposed to be this time where we get together and we laugh and we play games and we eat and we have community together. And but at the same time, the season can be tough, right? I tell you what, I think it was Wednesday. I was talking to my wife, Ashley. She's here in the front row every week. And I told her, I said, I don't think I want to do Thanksgiving. I don't know if it's not going to be, it's going to be difficult. And it was, it was one of those things. This is our second, just for some information. So this is our second Thanksgiving without my mom and one of her dads, and so it's like you're still together, but it's like there's a gaping hole in it, and it's not. And I'm not the only one that feels that way, right? I mean, there's all like so many of us, and it's like we always kind of flash back to the good days of the family getting together, right? It's like, man, when I was going to my grandma's and we were all getting together, and it was like that was the good times. Those were the good moments, and it was such an amazing time. And it's like, but we had some good times this weekend. But I'll tell you what, it was every 10 minutes it felt like it just felt like she was right there, like you could hear her voice. Like you were waiting for her to say something, waiting for her to show up. And what we realize is that I need my family, and my family needs me. And so what the idea of this series is this idea of hope, and it's the idea of presence, and being the presence of hope in each other's lives. Because we don't need to do this difficult stuff alone, that we have each other. And so when you try to hide from your pain, you oftentimes subject others to more, right? Because when you're hiding, that means you're not present. And when you're avoiding something, you can't address it with your loved ones, and so you're leaving them out on a limb when you're trying to. And I get it, right? I get it. And so the focus of this passage out of Isaiah is that we are not left alone. That the good shepherd, he gathers, feeds, and leads his flock. And so the shepherd is never far from his sheep, even though it feels that way at times. Right? That you think you've wandered out of his vision, you think you've wandered away from whatever presence he has in your lives, and the reality is that he is not far. Right? That God is not far from him. That's what this season is about. So Isaiah, go to the end of Isaiah. If you're following with us, we can go to the end of Isaiah 40. So it's the same chapter, and it says this: "Why do you say, O Jacob, and assert, O Israel. And so here, Israel and Jacob, it's the synonymous term. It's just kind of repetitive. Why do you say, O Jacob, and assert, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is discarded by my God? I don't believe in dumb questions, okay? But some questions have obvious answers. And so with this question, it's like, what do you mean? Like, why do we wonder? Like, there's times in our lives, the reason that people wonder sometimes where God is, or that their plight has been or God has abandoned them, or he's not near them. Like, the reason they feel that way is because there's times when they have called out and asked for specific things or specific wants, or felt that God should have addressed something in the way that they felt it should have been addressed, and it didn't happen that way. And so we go, well, I guess God doesn't hear me. God, now would have been a great time to show up. I'm hurting and I'm lost. Where are you? That's what that question is. I understand that question. Where are you, God? Do you hear me, God? And if there's one thing that's for me that's changed in my life over the last 6 years, it's that I no longer judge people that have wandered or struggled with their faith. I don't because I understand it. And more than anything, and here's the thing that's happened to me a lot, especially getting back into the workforce, and being in construction in the last, 7 years, 6 years, something like that, is that people tell me all the time the reasons that they are not in church. It's a consistent story. It's over and over again. It's like, man, and what it comes down to is it comes down to that little phrase. My way is hidden from the Lord. And they don't always say it that way, obviously, right? But there's this idea, because what happens is we try to play these kind of games with well, is there a God? Or, here's where I come out with most folks. I say, listen, we all agree that whatever created all of this was massive, powerful, full of energy, and has always existed. I said, so atheist, Christian, whatever it is, we all know that something created all of this. This all came from something that's always been here. And so we can argue about what God is and who God is and how he functions and all those things. But the reality is most people that don't believe, especially if they grew up in church, it's because they were told about a God, that the God of the reality and the God that they were told about in Sunday school don't tend to line up. We kind of end up with a Sunday school faith in the real world, and it's we need more than that. And so and here's, can I tell you one of my pet peeves? I was going to tell you anyway. It's when people, Christians, are so confident that they have God completely figured out. It's just like you're just so confident, like you just know all these things about, like you just know God. Like first off, I love the way Job says it. He says it this in verse 11, or chapter 11:7. Job says, can you discover the depths of God? Right? Can you discover the limits of the Almighty? And it's like listen, the Bible is full of people that haven't got God figured out, so you probably don't either. Like the people that wrote the Bible didn't have God figured out, so you probably don't have it figured out either. Like Moses and David, right? Moses and David are like the two key figures in the entire Old Testament. Both murderers. Both murderers. Like our board here would not hire those two. Right? You're like, well, did they pay their time? Like, no. Like Moses was a fugitive. He just ran away from it, right? And then it's like, well, David, he was just king, and kings get away with that stuff, and not much has changed, right? Right? It's kind of how the world has always functioned. And so it's like, these guys wouldn't be hired, but they are the central figures. But here's what I love about them. What is the how is David remembered? A man after God's own heart. That's what the scriptures say. And so he isn't praised because he had it all figured out, right? He isn't praised because he did everything right. I hope this is comforting, right? He wasn't praised. Like, his epitaph is a man after God's own heart, which means that God is pleased with you when you are in pursuit of him. That's what that is, right? That even in the middle of everything that he screwed up, and he screwed up a lot, and Moses screwed up a lot. Listen, if you read the Bible, they all screwed up a lot. But they were pursuing. There's something about being in pursuit of God that brought joy to his heart. And so God is pleased with those who continue to pursue him despite their circumstances. So Isaiah 40, let's go to verse 27. And we didn't get very far, right? Why do you say, O Jacob, and assert, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, my right is discarded by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will grow faint and be weary, and young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. I want that. And so what does he say? He says, how do you get that? Well, he says the way to get that, right? He says it's that those who what? Wait. It's those who wait on the Lord. Who loves waiting? No, it's like waiting is like the last thing I want to be asked to do, right? It's like I have things to do. Like when I'm warming up my Thanksgiving plate, I put it in the microwave like 5 times because I just don't want to put it in for 4 minutes. Like I'm like every 90 seconds checking, nope. No, I just want to eat it now, right? It's like even the microwave is not fast enough for me. You understand? Carl Jung said something that I really love. He said, that which you need most will be found where you least want to look. That which you need most will be found where you least want to look. And it's like, yeah, I hate looking in the waiting. I hate the waiting. And so often it's the waiting that is really what we need. When Ashley and I moved to Lakewood, our marriage was like on the rocks, right? In fact, the house we bought because either one of us could afford it if we got divorced. Like, we had that discussion ahead of time. And so it was not good. Like, I was in a massive depression, and it was not going away. I was positive our marriage wasn't going to work. But I had decided I was going to do my due diligence, right? I was like, I'm going to put my foot forward one day after another, and I'm going to do what I can tomorrow the best that I can, right? Sometimes, you ever been that point in life? Whatever it is, it's like, I just got to get to tomorrow. And so 2 years of get to tomorrow. And so what I was doing is like, man, I got to figure this thing out because I knew I was depressed. It's like, I got to figure this thing out. It's like, I'm going to fix me, right? And so like I went to work, and I would work 10-hour shifts, and I would go to the gym because everything I was reading said, well, you got to work out if you want, because 10 hours of construction isn't enough working out. You had to go to the gym, and then you got to work out to get rid of those endorphins or whatever the science is. I'm sure Brendan knows how it works. But there's this, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to read. I got to learn, right? It's like not just physical, but mentally. Maybe it's my mental is wrong, and I got to learn everything I can about depression and anxiety. And so I learned, and then learning didn't take it away, and the working out didn't take it away, and the working it all the time didn't take it away. And I had a marriage coach, which is a great thing if you don't have one. He was fantastic. And he said over and over, I would meet with him every other week for a while, and then maybe once a month, and he would say, Carson, it takes time. I don't have time, right? It takes time. It's in the waiting. And he said it might take medication. And I was like, I'm not taking medication. I don't even take Tylenol. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that guy. And so I was doing everything I could to fix this thing myself. And then I was like, you know what? It's not going to work. And I was going to leave. And I told myself, I can't leave without trying every single thing. And so I was like, I'll try the meds. I know they're not going to work. I know they're not going to work. But I'll give them a shot. That way I can say I did everything. Because listen, if you've never been in major depression, it's like you just want to walk out the door and keep walking in one direction until you hit water. You know, it's like you just want to go somewhere where you can't hurt anyone. Because that's what you feel. You feel like your life is causing more damage than joy. And so I took the meds. Within 3 days, I was back to my normal self. And I couldn't believe it. But it was by looking in the place that I least wanted to look. It was the waiting and the meds. And I'm not saying that's for everybody. But for me, it was the thing that I didn't want to do. It was the thing that I didn't want to look into. I didn't want to touch. I wanted to stay away from. And it was really the thing that God used to transform my chemicals in my body back to where they needed to be. And so I'm grateful that it's in the waiting that I didn't give up, right? That I did everything I could, that I took the time, because I love what we have now, and I never thought we could have what we have now. And it's because of the waiting, and it's in being patient with God and what He's doing. Verse 31 says, right, so it says, but those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. And so it's waiting. So here's the thing. Waiting doesn't mean folding your hands. Right? Like that, we didn't wait with our heads in the sand. Right? We were waiting with counselors and coaches and learning things and dating and starting over and starting fresh. We were waiting. We weren't thrilled with each other. Like, we weren't thrilled with where our marriage was, but we were still doing the things that we knew we should be doing. And so the waiting is not just, it's not I think it's Proverbs 6:9-11. It says, how long will you lie there, O lazy bones? I love lazy bones. That's a great word. It says, when will you rise from your sleep? A little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed warrior. And so we're not going to fold our hands in the waiting. But waiting is an active thing that we're going to do. We're going to do everything we can. One of the things I say over and over again, and I probably just still will, it's that go do the most difficult thing you could possibly accomplish. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're lost, if you're struggling, if you don't know when God's going to show up, go find something difficult to do. Because it provides some kind of purpose in your life. It gives you something to aim at. And sometimes we just need something to aim at. Job, when we were at our worst, one of the things that really helped us was friends. It was friends. People would just show up. People would hang out with us. And listen, it's awkward to hang out with two people that are just not getting along, all right? If you've ever hung out with that couple, we were that couple, all right? And we knew it, they knew it, everyone knew it, but they would still come hang out with us because they were friends and we needed them, and they knew that we needed people in our lives and around us. It's in Job chapter 2, verse 11. It says, now when Job, if you don't know Job's story, Job lost everything. Everything, and he had a lot to lose. It says, now when Job's 3 friends heard of all these troubles that had come upon him, each of them set out from his home. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They met together to go and console and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept aloud. They tore their robes and threw dust in the air upon their heads. They sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and No one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. Listen, his friends were not perfect. And if you read the whole book of Job, they said some stupid things. And listen, you're going to say some stupid things when people are grieving. Listen, I've done a lot of funerals. I've heard some stupid things, right? But it's out of like a good place, you know. But what they did right was they were present. They were present with their friend in a time of need, in a dark place. They showed up, and it's like so we have to find time. Listen, I know life's crazy, but we have to find time. If the dishes have to stack up, if the laundry has to get higher, we have to find time to be present with those people in our lives that are hurting, the friends that we know that are hurting, the family members that we know that are struggling. Like, we have to find time to be present in those people's lives. Like, that's Scripture. Look at Psalm chapter 80. Verse 1. This is the most Old Testament sermon I think I've ever done. We haven't touched the New Testament yet. Right? So Psalm 80, verse 1 says, "Give ear, O shepherd of Israel, you who lead Joseph like a flock, you who are enthroned upon the cherubim, shine forth before Ephraim and Benjamin and Manasseh. Stir up your might." Those are just cities. "Stir up your might and come to save us. Restore us, O God. Let your face shine that we may be saved." And so Asaph, it's the same kind of call, isn't it? It's like God, like, show up. God, do something. God, where are you? It's the same cry to God, believing that he will do something. And so the question has to be asked. It's like, why do they believe that God's going to show up? Why are they so confident that they could pray out and that God's going to do something? Well, it's two things. It's past performance and future promise. Right, what is the saying? It's like the best indicator of future action is past behavior. Well, that's why they have faith, right? That's why we talk about the last 2 weeks. When we talk about Moses, remembering, right? We talk about communion, right? It's the whole idea of what God has already done, right? We have trust and we have faith in God because we've already seen him move. And so it's from our stories and from the Bible and from our own experiences, like when we're looking at our own lives and go like, God showed up in my life in the past. And so I have to remember those times. I have to remember what God has brought me out of. And so I have to tell my own story to myself, but then that's why I tell my story to you, right? And then I'm hoping that you're telling your story to somebody else. And so it's like, because it's through our stories of how God has done something in our lives that we're confident in that he can do it again, right? And so we have past performance, but we also have future promise. And so the thing is that not only has God acted in a salvific mode like throughout history, but he's also promised salvation into the future. I think there's a passage that, man, does not get a lot of play in church, but it's 2 Samuel 7. And what's happening is King David he's in control at this point. He has kind of squashed the armies that are near him, and so he's got a little peace. He's actually built a huge home. And so he's got his big home, and he's sitting up on top of his house, and he's looking out. And this isn't the Bathsheba story. It's a different story. It's before that. So he's looking out of his house, and he sees the Ark of the Covenant. And so the Ark of the Covenant is God with the community of God, with the community of Israel. And so it's kind of it's the thing, right? It's the big deal. And so he's looking out his window, and he's in his beautiful mansion. He's looking out his window, and he says the Ark of the Covenant is in a tent. And he's like, man, I want to build God a house. All right? And so I want to build God a house. And so this is so he goes to the prophet Nathan, and he says, Nathan, I'm going to build God a house. All right? And so this is God's response. And this is I looked at 4 different commentators, and they all agreed that this was maybe one of the most important passages in the Old Testament outside of like Moses, all right? 2 Samuel 7, verse 12. This is speaking to David. When your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your ancestors, I will raise up for you offspring after you, who shall come forth from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me. When he commits iniquity, I will punish him with a rod, such as mortals use with blows inflicted by human beings. But I will not take my steadfast love from him as I took it from Saul. Saul was the king before David, whom I put away from before you. Your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever. So what's the promise? It's that God will, at some point, rule forever. And so he's partially, so this is a kind of, he's talking about two different things here. So there's the Solomon, right? Solomon's David's son, and he actually builds a physical temple for God. But like his reign does not last forever, right? Israel falls apart like right after him, all right? Completely falls apart. So there's this promise that God is going to do something through the line of David. That at some point, and so this is what all the prophets, when you start reading all the Old Testament prophets, it's always like, hold fast, stay firm, like trust that God's going to pull you out of this because of this promise. And so it's the promise is the hope for a long time, that they continue to go, just trust, just wait. It's in the waiting, just wait. And sometimes it's a generation of waiting. And they're always waiting for a new king from the line of David to save them. And so then when does all of this culminate? Mark 11, the triumphal entry. It says, then they brought the colt to Jesus, and they threw their cloaks on it, and he sat on it. And many people spread their cloaks on the road, and others spread leafy branches that they had cut in the fields. And then those who went ahead of those who followed were shouting, Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Right? It's the way, it's like this promise that we've been waiting for that's coming from David. Here he is, right? And so it's a callback to the prophets, and they're all waiting for, they're captive by Rome, and they don't know when they're going to get out. And listen, I bet some of them gave up. I'm sure some of them gave up. Like, this is just my plight. Like, I'm just a captive. The promise is the hope. And so listen, the presence of Jesus reinvigorated a fresh hope in the people in that day 2,000 years ago. They're like we give up. Like, we don't know. Like, we're just captives. But there's this guy. And he's kind of wandering around just healing people and teaching. And he's talking about being in close relationship with God, and it's like there's something happening, and it's like there's this hope that starts to rise, and that's why the crowds start to grow, right? When you read through the Gospels, the crowds just grow and grow and grow. Actually, he has to say wild things just to keep them slim, right? And then they come back, and so there's all this. So here's what I believe, church. The church is the hope of the world. We are the body of Christ present in this world. And we're the ones who need to be present with those who are on the margins and those who feel abandoned or alone. We are people who should be with those folks, those that are desperate, those that are hurting. We're supposed to be a present people because the presence of Christ, the presence of the church, the presence of our and our loved ones is the hope that we need. Blessings, church.